The following program and contents, including the views and opinions expressed by the host and any guest speakers, are solely for informational and entertainment purposes. The views and opinions expressed are not endorsed or supported by Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X Zone Broadcast Network, their employees, affiliates, or advertisers. The host and guest speakers are solely responsible for their own perspectives, and their views do not reflect those of Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X Zone Broadcast Network, their employees, affiliates, or advertisers. The information provided in this program should not be considered as professional advice or as a substitute for professional consultation. Listeners and viewers are encouraged to form their own opinions and seek independent advice when necessary. Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X Zone Broadcast Network, their employees, affiliates, and advertisers hereby disclaim any liability for any claims, damages, or losses incurred as a result of the information presented in this program.
Welcome to the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show with Larry Lawson. As a former career law enforcement officer and law enforcement educator, Larry focuses on the use of tried and true law enforcement investigative techniques in conducting paranormal investigations. Despite his experience and training, Larry also keeps an open mind to discussions on topics that deal with evidence that are not quite as physical in nature. Paranormal Stakeout guests are professionals in the field of the paranormal and parapsychology, conducting the investigations and research needed to further the cause of paranormal study. Larry advocates an agenda of standardization of structure and training in the field of paranormal investigation and research for the purpose of one day being able to produce the evidence needed to convince a jury of the existence of the paranormal. Whether it is ghosts, UFOs, unsolved mysteries, hauntings or cryptids, no topic is beyond the investigative reach of Larry Lawson and the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show team. Now, here is the host of the Paranormal Stakeout radio TV show, Larry Lawson.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, coming to you from the headquarters of the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation and Indian River Hauntings in beautiful Vero Beach, Florida. So we're really happy to have you folks here tonight, and I'd like to invite you to, if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about what we do down here in Florida with the FBPI and Indian River Hauntings, you can check us out at paranormalfbi.com and indianriverhauntings.com. We're also on Facebook, and you can check out some of the things that we are up to on our YouTube channel at Indian River Hauntings 2341. Now, one thing I do want to remind everybody that's watching the show is sometimes you have questions or thoughts or comments you'd like me to bring up on the show. If you do, I'd invite you to get a hold of me at ghostguy@paranormalstakeout.org. That's ghostguy@paranormalstakeout.org. Write in your questions, thoughts, or comments, and at the beginning of each show, we'll go over them first. And if I don't have the answers, we'll find them for you. So with that, tonight got an interesting show. Really excited and happy to have Mr. John Russell with us. John is an internationally known professional psychic for over a half a century, and he's worked with clients all over the world. He's also been a featured guest on a number of radio shows over the years, and he's actually filmed a TV pilot recently that delves into the psychically exploring the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. That's an incredibly interesting topic there. He's also been an avid motorcyclist for 50 years, and he considers himself a pretty good chess player. So with that, I'd like to welcome to Paranormal Stakeout my guest, Mr. John Russell. John, welcome to the show.
Larry, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. And you're a fellow Floridian up there in the north of me. So
yeah,
it's warm here like it is everywhere else in the country.
Oh, man, I tell you, the heat's brutal here. When I moved here, I grew up in Texas, in West Texas. And I figured, okay, the heat's bad enough there. I can handle anything everywhere. I moved to Florida, and the heat was like being sucker punched by Mike Tyson. It was like, oh my God. It's
You've had kind of an interesting career that started off when you were a youngster, I understand.
Yeah.
Many of my guests may not be familiar with you, so tell us a little bit about who John Russell is and how you got to where you're at today.
Sure, sure. Well, it started when I was a little over 5 years old, and I was asleep in my bed, sound asleep one night. And in the middle of the night, I was suddenly totally, completely wide awake, no grogginess, no drowsiness. And I thought, well, this is really crazy. Why would I be this awake all of a sudden? And I lay there in the dark in my bed, and I thought, well, maybe something happened outside, and the noise woke me, and I laid there and listened, didn't hear anything. And my parents had left a nightlight on in the hallway down the hall, so if I had to get up and go to the bathroom, whatever, I could see. So I'm lying there in bed, and well, this is really, really strange. And I raised up on my elbows just to look around my bedroom. And I looked out my open bedroom door, looked down the hallway, and in the nightlight's glow, there was this elderly black gentleman peering around the door frame at me, looking into my bedroom. And I screamed bloody murder because obviously my family's white. We didn't have anyone black living with us. And my natural assumption as a 5.5-year-old kid was that someone had broken into the house. And when I screamed, this guy walked around the doorway into the hall, started walking toward the bedroom, walking toward me, locked eyes with me, never looked away. I can tell you what he wore. He was as solid as you or I. He wasn't misty, wasn't translucent, wasn't transparent. He was every bit as solid as you or I. And I knew he was elderly because he had a close cropped mustache, or close cropped white hair, and a white mustache. And I can tell you to this day, he had on a long sleeve red flannel shirt. He had on khaki pants, black belt, black shoes. I mean, I remember him like it was yesterday.
Made an impression, huh?
Yes. And the closer he got, of course, I had screamed again. My parents started to come running. And right before they got into my bedroom, he vanished. He disappeared. And I was so frightened. I told my parents, I said, there's somebody in this house, even though I'd just seen him disappear. I said, there's someone in this house. And I was so frightened that my father actually went through the house, checked all the doors and windows, opened up the closets, looked under the beds. I mean, that's how frightened I was. And that was what I conveyed to my parents. And of course, no one was there in the flesh. And so then it dawned on me that I had seen my first ghost. And it was almost impossible to go back to sleep. And for the next several weeks, it was like looking over my shoulder all the time. Where did this guy come from? How did he do that? How did he vanish? He was solid as a rock. Is he going to come back? Is he going to want to talk to me? Is he going to scare me to death? What in the world is going on? And then all these paranormal manifestations begin to occur on the physical realm. And my parents witnessed these as well. And I couldn't articulate it then, being that young, but I somehow realized intuitively that this guy had come not to scare the life out of me, although he inadvertently did that, but to open up this portal to these experiences that I suddenly begin to have. And I understood at some level that down the road, that was going to be important to me, and it was going to be important to other people. So as these experiences continued, and I got to be about the age of, got close to 6, I was out in the backyard playing with a toy one day, and this car pulled in the driveway, and I didn't recognize the people. So I ran the house, got mom and dad, and I said, somebody just pulled in the driveway. I don't know who it is. And I said, we'll come check. So they went outside, and they said, oh, these are friends of ours. And I'd never met the people. So they got out of their car, and they came up, and they were all standing outside on the sidewalk talking before they went in the house. And I was goofing around with my toy, and all of a sudden I looked at them, and I walked up in the big middle of them. I looked up at them, and I said, you folks have just been on vacation, and you drove that car that's sitting in the driveway, but you took 2 kids with you. You have 2 kids. They're not with you today, but you have 2 kids. You took them with you on this vacation, and you stayed at this hotel that was this many stories, and it was painted this color, and there were trees out front at regular intervals that looked like this. And in the back, the pool area was painted such and such color and looked like this. Well, the lady's husband was kind of looking back and forth between her and my parents and me with this kind of weird grin on his face, like, what in the world is going on? And the lady, it was really delightful because she was literally slack-jawed and bug-eyed. I mean, her eyes were literally bugging out. And she stared at me like I had cobras coming out of my ears. And she looked at my mother and she goes, how the hell could he possibly know that? And my mother was all embarrassed and everything, all shook up. And she said, well, kids and their imaginations. She goes, no. She said, kids and their imaginations, no. She said, how the hell could he possibly know that? She said, well, what do you mean? She said, that's what we were coming to tell you today was about the vacation we just took. We drove our car. We took our 2 kids. The hotel we stayed at was exactly like John described. How the hell could he possibly know that? And my parents were like, John, go play. And I was like, okay. So off I went. And I was, nice to meet you folks. And it scared them so bad they never came back. They never came back to visit my parents.
And that's when you realized maybe what your gift was.
Yes.
Yeah. Quite interesting story. Hey, just for our listeners, tonight we're actually taking call messages in, and I'm very pleased to have the listeners call in for asking questions. And we've got a caller on the line right now, John, already. So I'd like to invite Mary. Hi, Mary. What's your question? Hello, Mary.
Looks like Mary's mic is muted.
Yeah, it did look like that, didn't it? Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll get back to Mary in just a quick second then.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning, and I'm sure at age 6 you didn't quite understand what was going on, or did you?
I kind of sort of did, and I had this real desire to really understand what was happening and to grow this thing and see where it went. And by the time I was 11 years old, I was a real good reader from an early age with real good comprehension. So by the time I was 11, I was delving into everything I could get my hands on: religion, psychology, parapsychology, anything to do with the paranormal, anything to do with the psychic realm. And I studied everything. And my desire was, what works, what doesn't? And how can I make this gift better? What do I do with this to make it as good as I can possibly be to help other people with it? And that was the start of it.
When did you understand it was a gift, and where do you think this gift came from?
It was around 11 or 12 when I really began to get the idea that, okay, this is something special I've been given. And I knew that, we can call it universal mind, we can call it God, we can call it the powers that be, whatever nomenclature you want to use. I understood that some higher power had given me this for some purpose. And as I began to study and progress, I found out that I could also, I could not only read people's minds, I could tell their emotions, I could tell where they had been, what they'd been doing, but I could begin to accurately predict their futures. And the predictions came true. So I said, okay, I've really got to make something out of this. And I started reading for friends and family when I was about 15. And then by the age of 18, I was reading professionally. And now I've been reading for over 50 years. And I've read for clients in over 40 countries, which just blows my mind. It just seems incomprehensible. And I've done paranormal investigation and research since I was about 11 or 12. And I've done a lot of paranormal investigations, a lot of research, and always with the idea of what works, what doesn't, what's truth, what isn't.
Truth. And that's exactly what we strive for in our end also. Now, you said reading professionally. To me, that solicits the picture of sitting in a house and having people come in and looking at a crystal ball. I hate to stereotype it, but how did you begin at that age professionally doing it? How did people even know to come to you? And give me some examples of how you were able to help someone.
Well, people came to me primarily through word of mouth in the beginning, and my reputation spread even at a young age. And there were people that would drive a couple of 100 miles one way just to get a reading in person with me. And I had the facility to look into people's lives and say, okay, you're in the position you are now because of this, this, and this. And to change that, to make your future better, these are the things that you need to do. And here's what I see coming down the road. And if it's something negative, we're going to tell you how to minimize it or avoid it entirely if possible. And if it's something positive, how to position yourself so that you connect with it, interact with it, and your life is better.
But doesn't that sound a little bit like it's just using common sense and making good choices, or did you physically see something?
No, it went way beyond that. I made specific predictions for people's lives that came true. My clients over the years, over this 50-year period, my clients have told me that my predictions have an accuracy of 80 to 90, 95%.
Excellent. Well, speaking of predictions, you probably predicted that we are about ready to take our first break.
All right.
So we're coming up on our first breaks. Folks, stay with us. I've got John Russell here on Paranormal Stakeout. We'll be right back after these messages. And we are back on Paranormal Stakeout with my guest tonight, John Russell. And John, fascinating first quarter of the show here. Can you give me an example of, and I don't want names obviously, but an event that you were able to help somebody with because of your abilities? Can you give us, just give me an example?
Yeah. I think one of the examples that comes to mind was a lady I had that she was the processor for my credit card company at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she wanted a reading with me. It was the first reading she ever had in her life. So I asked her during the reading, I said, well, what do you think about it? She said, your insights are amazing, things about me that you couldn't possibly know unless you had some kind of a gift and so on and so forth. And so we reached the end of the reading and I said, you're going to move within a year's time. I think sooner rather than later, and I believe Nevada, and it may be Las Vegas. And I said, you're going to stay in the same field, but you're going to own your own business, and you're going to make more money than you've ever made in your life. And she laughed and laughed and laughed. She said, John, she said, this reading has been absolutely mind-blowing up to this point. But she said, let me tell you something. She said, I have no intention of moving. I hate Nevada. I would never live in Nevada. She said, it would be almost financially impossible and a lot of machinations I would have to deal with to get my own business in this field. And I'm pretty much topped out money-wise for what I earn right now. I said, do me a favor, write these things down, then holler back at me. So it wasn't but a few months or so later, and she called me back. She said, John? And I said, yes. She said, I moved to Nevada, and I started my own business in this field, and I'm making more money than I ever made in my life. And I was like, all right, fantastic. And she said, yeah, but the funny thing is, I totally, completely forgot that you told me all these things. And my girlfriend said, didn't that psychic you had the reading with tell you were going to do this? She was like, oh, yeah. She had totally, completely forgotten. But that's an example of some of the predictions that I get that are accurate, that come through for people and prove to be beneficial for them.
And you're able to do this over the phone as well as in person?
I do it exclusively by phone for decades now, and I read for people all over the world. I can read for people in England or Israel or Australia, and they might as well be sitting across the table from me, because a genuine psychic gift doesn't have the limitations of time, space, or distance.
Well, I've experienced that with a gentleman that I work with, and he is able to do it over the line. So I understand that, but I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here.
Sure.
Are you able to tell me anything? This is our first night taking in calls.
Right.
So let's make it another first night. I've never asked this question before.
Interesting.
Well, are you able to see anything with me?
There's a little bit there that's coming, but give me a little bit and I'll circle back to it, because it's got to kind of congeal a little bit for me.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. So
I'm not real sure that it's something that you might want on the air.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you can come up with something that is family friendly, I would appreciate it. We'll chat. But I'm fascinated with this because I'm very intrigued by the power of the brain. I'm very intrigued by everything that is connected with this remote viewing, that type of thing. So I'll give you your deference there, just to take a look and let me know what you can.
Yeah, I will do that. We may do it off the air. I don't know, but we'll see. I'll see if it fits. I'll see if it fits to the air here as we go.
All right. Well, what do you think this is? What do you think this entire phenomenon is?
It's we have inherent within us the ability to exercise these gifts, to pick up on these vibrations or energies or whatever it is. Beyond that, we also have the ability to communicate with I call them guardian angels, spirit guides, so on and so forth in the invisible realm. And we have the ability to make that connection there. There are things out there that nobody honestly knows what is. There are things that intelligences, beings, whatever, that we just don't know exactly what are, and we don't have names for. They're not malevolent. I'm not saying that, but they're just unknown, and they have the ability to communicate. There's nature spirits. There's all these other categories of beings. And, Star Wars got it right. The Force. We are all interconnected. We're connected with nature. We're connected with each other. We're connected with these other beings that are sometimes in the invisible realm, sometimes in the visible realm. And it's actually just a natural order of things on this planet. We think it's paranormal, but it's actually normal. It's actually the state of things as they should be.
So, do you, in your philosophy, how you're seeing things, do you believe that this is all connected to a collective conscience? Do you believe that it's separate beings, levels? What is it? Is there one central power?
Yeah.
Or
I think that there is a creator or a creative source. Because if you go to, like, this is the argument I always have with people about UFOs, and I'm a UFO experiencer. And the argument I have with people with UFOs is there's a school of thought that the extraterrestrials created us. And I say, okay, fine. Who created the extraterrestrials? There's always a source. There always has to be a creation there. If there are gods, if there are angels, if there are this, if there are that, where did they come from? Who created them? There has to be this source of all creation. And so that's the thing that I defer to, whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it universal mind, God, universal consciousness, whatever. I think there has to be this one overseeing, overlying creative force. And then I think under that are all these other intelligences, beings, us, guardian angels, so on and so forth.
Okay. Since you're also a paranormal researcher, and that's kind of where, I spend a lot of my time.
Yeah.
What are ghosts? In your opinion, what is what we refer to as a ghost?
Yeah. Well, a ghost is the spirit of a deceased person, or it can be a replay in the atmosphere from an event that's occurred there that's left some traumatic impression, or maybe a good impression. And it's just something that replays again and again in that atmosphere, kind of like a movie. You go in and it triggers it, and, okay, this is what's going on. And it doesn't necessarily interact with you. Whereas a ghost that's a person that's deceased, that's on the other side, they will interact with you. They will come and tell you things that, for example, one radio show I was on a number of years ago, they had a new DJ. And she said, well, do you get anything for me? And I said, well, hang on, we'll see what happens here in a little bit. So during one of the breaks, I said, yeah, your grandmother's on the other side, isn't she? And she said, yeah. And I said, she sees that in your house, in your room, I think it's in your bedroom, you've got like a little table or something set up, and you've got her picture there in a frame, and you've got some things of hers or whatever, and you've got a candle there, and you light that candle and you kind of say a prayer for her. And this is the setup in your room. She said, that's right. That's correct. And I said, your grandmother sees this, and she's telling me this. And your grandmother says to tell you that she hears your prayers and feels your prayers. And when you go in and sit down and light that candle, she sees the light of the candle and smells the aroma of the candle on the other side. And I said, she tells me it's like peach scented or whatever it was. And she said, yeah, that's right. So people on the other side have their intelligence, have their will, their volition, their emotions, so on and so forth. And they see what's going on over here and can interact with that, communicate that back to us. So intelligent ghost, in other words, a departed soul versus a replay in the atmosphere.
Residual. I kind of refer to that as residual or non-sentient. Yeah.
Right.
So what you're saying is, in your opinion, that they're around us all the time.
Absolutely. What I try and get people to understand, where you and I are sitting right now, and where all of our listeners are sitting, we have all these radio waves going through the air around us right now. They're right there. And if we get a radio and we plug it in, we turn the dial, Oh, here's a country station. Oh, here's a jazz station. Oh, here's a rock station. Well, that music is in the air all the time. We're just not tuned into it. And these spirits, beings, ghosts, guardian angels, whatever, are constantly around us all the time. That's the normal state of affairs, but we're not normally tuned in.
Well, and I think it's pretty common knowledge in the field that frequency and vibration is a bedrock
Exactly.
to all of this. So if those that have gone before us are still around us, are they, in your opinion, are they stuck here? Are they moving on? I mean,
no.
Okay.
They're not stuck. They're not earthbound. And I always get tickled when people say, send them to the other side. If you're dead, guess what? You're on the other side. You're there. You made it. Okay. But people on the other side, they're going to choose where they hang around, who they're going to hang around with, for how long, for what purpose. And you have to understand that on the other side, we may think, okay, they're hanging around us all the time because we've had a really dramatic experience with them, and we assume they're there. They may be off doing something else in some other dimension, some other place or whatever, and then come back to us again. But no, they're not earthbound. They have the choice of where they're going to be, where they're going to hang around, what they're going to do, and so on and so forth. We need to understand that. That's really crucial to our understanding of making peace with the fact that they have crossed over and that they're not earthbound or trapped or whatever.
Your thoughts on reincarnation, because there's many that feel that once we pass from this realm, this dimension, we go to another level, and we come back. We're learning as we go.
Yeah, do it all over again. Yeah.
From what you're describing, they just sort of hang out once they go over there.
Yeah, I have never found anything. I have read all the literature on reincarnation, and I've read a few compelling incidents that merited a little bit further study, but I have yet to find anything on which I would hang my hat to where I could definitively say, yeah, I believe in reincarnation. I'm not sure. I haven't found anything that convinces me. And of the compelling incidents that I've read about, after I really thought about those a long time and studied them for a long time, I thought, okay, now, is this some young kid that actually lived that past life and is coming back with total recall of it up to a point and up to a certain age? Or is this kid just a really good psychic like I was at that age, and he's picking up on something that he's then internalized because he doesn't know how to objectify?
Interesting. Yeah. Well, with that, we're about ready to take our next break, but I want to remind folks, if you're watching us tonight, you're watching us live, please call in with questions. We are waiting with bated breath to hear from you. Talk to John or myself if you have questions, thoughts, or comments. So please give us a call in. And with that, we're going to take our next break, so stay with us. We'll be back with John Russell right after these messages. And we are back on Paranormal Stakeout with my guest, John Russell. Yeah. John, so is there a heaven?
You know, I don't know. I don't know exactly. From my communications with people on the other side, I don't get the impression of the stereotypical heaven that we think that we're going to go to when we die. There seems to be various dimensions, various environments, atmospheres. There seems to be a continued learning process. There does seem to be a review process, but not necessarily tied to any kind of punishment or anything like that for the average person. I'm not saying that Hitler goes on the other side and gets scot-free. That's not what I'm saying. But for the average person, there doesn't seem to be any type of, punishment or purgatory or anything like that. But, the problem is the other side plays peekaboo with us. And if you're the best psychic on the planet, you're not God. You don't know everything. If you're the best paranormal researcher on the planet, you don't know everything. And we get these glimpses, these bits and pieces of the other side, and we have to piece together the best guess we can from that. And we just don't know for certain.
I think that's an important point. We don't know. And this kind of leads into the next question I wanted to ask you is I've spoken to many folks that have claimed to have psychic abilities. Some I trust implicitly because I know them well. Others I'm not so sure. But the question I want to ask you is, how come how come you guys don't have the same story? How come people with your gift, and I'm as sensitive as a rock, John. So but why is it those that are able to see the other side don't come back with the same story? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think that the main problem that we have in the psychic realm, the spiritual realm, the paranormal realm, even the religious realm, is that people view things through a certain pair of colored glasses that they choose to put on. So if you studied Christianity growing up, you're going to view everything through Christian glasses in the Bible. If you studied Buddhism, you're going to view everything through that. If you were taught as you developed your psychic gift, if you were taught that this is the way things are on the other side by someone that you viewed as your mentor or guru or whatever, that's the philosophy you're going to adopt. And when I began to do all this research and study around the age of 11, what I tried to do was get away from all the dogma, all the tradition, all the ritual, and say, okay, let's strip all that away and let's find out what's out there, undisguised, unfettered, without any specific viewpoint attached to it, and let's find out what it is and what works. And
that's some pretty mature thinking for an 11-year-old.
Well, I couldn't articulate it that way, but I understood it that way.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
And that's the problem that we encounter when you talk about, various people's inputs or perceptions or this, that, and the other, is how are they interpreting it? They're interpreting it through their viewpoint or through their training or through some particular dogma or tradition or some particular ritual. It's like I had a client in India one time that I was reading for. And he said, John, he said, my religion does not work. And he said, I know it does not work, but I'm scared to death to let go of it. Why? And I said, well, we're all raised, wherever we are, whatever religion is, that we're raised that there is some type of God or gods, some type of supreme beings or creators or whatever. And we have to do X, Y, and Z to keep from pissing them off. Because if we do, we're going to go to hell. We're going to burn. We're going to be reborn as a jackal. We're going to be in purgatory. We're going to be in black void forever or whatever. And so that's why you're afraid to let go of it, because that's what you've had drummed into your head since you were a kid. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult to turn loose of perspectives that we've been fed our entire life. And the natural knee-jerk reaction for most people when they encounter something paranormal, not talking about psychics or investigators or anything else now, but the average person that encounters something paranormal, the knee-jerk reaction is going to be, oh my God, this thing's demonic or malevolent or satanic or devilish or whatever, or tried to hurt me or whatever, because that's your upbringing. Your upbringing is the Bible, and anything outside of that is not accepted paranormal. If it's in the Bible, it's accepted paranormal experience. If it's outside of that, it's not. And so that's kind of your default reaction. And then people that, I'm amazed at the number of people that in the spiritual realm, in the religious realm, in the psychic realm, that have these preconceived notions that don't hold water, that don't pan out, that don't amount to a hill of beans, but hold on to them with a vice grip,
Well, not only will they hold on to them with a vice grip, but I am right.
Exactly.
I know this. So how do we get around this? I know that there are charlatans out there. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But there's also folks out there that have goodness in their heart when they do this. But from what you're describing, you let's just pretend that I have psychic ability and I'm seeing a different way based upon how I've been brought up.
Right.
So if we're going to help people,
how do you get around that?
Well, because you say it one way, I say it another way, what's right, and what you haven't accomplished it. So how do you fix this so that people get the straight story?
You fix it by getting people to let go of their egos and getting people to let go of their dogma, ritual, and tradition. We had, when I was growing up, we held a circle. The old time spiritualists used to call it a circle. And we held a circle at my house. And initially, the way it began was, if you're a devout Christian and believe in biblical prayer, if you're utilizing techniques that the inner peace movement teaches, or Ekankar, or Buddhism, or whatever, you use that, but don't impose it on everyone else. If you want to pray by the Bible, you pray by the Bible. If you want to use an Ekankar technique, you do that. If you want to use an inner peace movement technique, do that. If you want to use meditation, visualization, you do that. And let's direct that toward the common goal. Joe Blow's sick. Let's direct healing energy toward him by whatever method you choose to use, and see if we can make Joe Blow better. Now, when we did that, we had marvelous results, but then ego came in, and it was like, well, why can't we hold this at my house now? Why can't I be in charge of the meetings every now and then? And then it became, well, we've got these good results, but have you read this new book? And so-and-so says this is the hot new paranormal technique and psychic technique, and we should be trying this, and we should be using that. Well, no, I read that Ekankar has come out with this thing, now we should do this. So then it blew up because everybody got into ego and into...
Well, and ego is unfortunately a sin, if you will, that all humans tend to have at some different level.
Absolutely.
But what I'm getting at is if you and two other psychics, your hearts are in the right place. Mm-hmm. It is your desire to do good,
right,
but you still can't come up with the same story. What does that say to the folks that are hearing it? Well, wait a minute, there's three guys. And is there a way to fix that? I mean, if three have the ability, how can we fix it? How can we get past the ego? How can we get past the prior learning? How can we make the story straight?
You have to be willing to let go of it, and you have to be willing to follow the truth wherever the truth leads you. And if you hold a particular viewpoint and that viewpoint doesn't pan out, you got to be willing to let go of that viewpoint. If you have a pet peeve and you hold on to it, but it does not work, you got to be willing to let go of that. And that's what I've done my entire life. Is like, okay, does this work or does it not? If it doesn't work, I get rid of it. And, I've wanted to follow the truth, not what's popular, not what somebody wrote in a book that was a New York Times bestseller, because I don't amount to hell beans. Just because they're a New York Times bestselling author don't mean they know anything any better than you or I. And I've got a lot of documented stories about that to illustrate that truth. But I wanted to find out, okay, let's find out what's real. Let's find out what the truth is. And along the way, if I have to jettison everything I believed in, so be it. And one example of that, by the time I was 20 years old, I'd had this gigantic plethora of paranormal physical manifestations, and other people had observed them. Other people had experienced them. So they're real. They're actually occurring on the physical realm. And in spite of all these crazy, magnificent, marvelous, weird things, I didn't believe in UFOs. I saw the literature. I read the literature. I read the books. I saw the interviews. Nope, didn't buy it. Didn't believe in it. Did not believe in UFOs until I had, and it's a long story, and we probably don't have time for it in the show tonight, but I had this daylight sighting in the presence of witnesses, up close and personal. And so there was the fact. And I had to jettison my disbelief and say, okay, got to switch religions, because there it is.
Okay, you can't leave me hanging like that. Give me the Reader's Digest version of what occurred and what changed your mind. And then are you suggesting also that the world of UFO phenomenon and spiritual ghosts are connected?
There is, we just don't have time to go into it, and I wish we did, because it's a long and involved subject, but there is substantial evidence, and from my own experience, that UFOs either produce or coincide with paranormal activity. And there is substantial evidence for that. And in my own case as well. And in this case that, I think we've got, like 15 minutes left in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, we no way to cover it, not even the Reader's Digest version, but it took seeing this UFO up close and personal with witnesses to change my mind and say, okay, there it is. I got to believe in it now, because I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it in the presence of witnesses.
Did you get a picture of it?
No, doggone it, I didn't. And, this way before the days of cell phones and all that kind of stuff. And, you didn't routinely carry cameras. And if I had been able to have gotten a picture of it, I'll tell you this, Larry, it was so close and so clear that I would have sold it to the Inquirer, and I wouldn't have had to work to this day. That's how good a shot it would have been. Yeah.
Well, and that's another issue too. Now, I consider myself pretty open-minded. I've been a cop for 40 years, and
Right.
I've learned the hard way. You just don't automatically take things on face value, nor do you close your mind off to different possibilities.
Right.
But when we come back on our break, I want to talk to you a little bit about how not only the world that you're in, but paranormal investigations, even the UFO world, has an issue with folks
scamming,
make things up, scamming.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about that in just a second. I do want to remind folks, we do have one little bit section of the show here. So if you're on there and you've got questions to ask, now's the time to do it. You'll see the little banner on the bottom to tell you how to call into us and ask questions. And you can also send us a message at ghostguideparanormalstakeout.org. So with that, stay with us for the last part of the show. Paranormal Stakeout, my guest, John Russell. We'll be right back after these messages. And we're back on Paranormal Stakeout with my guest, John Russell. Want to remind everybody that if you want to check out a little bit about the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation or Indian River Hauntings, check out our websites at paranormalfbi.com, indianriverhauntings.com, and you can check out the stuff that we're into either on our Facebook by those two same names and on YouTube at Indian River Hauntings 2341. Paranormalstakeout.org is another way to get a hold of me. So just go ahead and click onto that and contact us. Also want to remind everybody, take a look at the great programming on the X-Zone Radio and TV Broadcast Network. That's xzbn.net. You can see some terrific shows on there, and I want to encourage everybody to take a look. And John, how can folks get a hold of you?
The easiest way to get a hold of me is to go to my website, which is johnrussell.net. Johnrussell.net. And you can schedule a reading there. You can find out all about me there. My client testimonials are there. My media appearances are there. I've got over 140 shows you can listen to, interviews you can listen to. The links to all three of my books are there. And I write about the UFO experiences and a lot of other things in my books that people really find fascinating. And the third book, which is just out, I mean, literally hot off the press, 20 Ways to Increase Your Psychic Abilities. And this book, I stripped away all the gobbledygook around learning, like, for example, psychic book. And I teach you how to do it, take you step by step, hold you by the hand, teach you how to do it, and teach you the real world application of it. And I do that for 20 techniques throughout the book. So those will be entertaining for people.
So are you of the belief that everybody has psychic ability?
Everybody has psychic abilities to a degree. You might study piano 5 years and barely play chopsticks. Some 6-year-old kid may be sitting down playing Beethoven, and boom, there he goes. So we all have varying degrees of ability. It is trainable to the degree that the person has. Everybody's going to plateau at some point and not progress much beyond that, but everybody has that ability. And people have made it so unnecessarily complicated and complex that what I did was strip all the rigmarole away from it. You don't have to shave your head, wear purple on the third full moon of the year, go out at midnight and cut a willow branch. No, you don't have to do none of that stuff. There are very simple, easy techniques to learn things and make them work for you.
Oh, there you are. I lost you for a second. Well, that leads into really where I want to get to
the phonies.
Last. The phonies, because let's face it, John, people can look at you and say, you're just cold reading them. You're good at what you do. I'm a cop. One thing that I've learned to do is I can look at people and I got a good idea whether or not they're lying to me. Cold reading, so to speak. And I don't have even a little bit, in my opinion, of psychic ability. So people look at they look at your description of your book and say, hey, I can make you do this. And I get it. Folks got to make a living. But what happens when folks are making those claims and they're false? It hurts all of us. I mean, on the paranormal investigator side, I'll just bring this up real quick. We've seen tons of times where people have faked evidence, and we've heard about it, we've read about it,
and it hurts everybody recently.
Yeah, it hurts all of us. Just like just like it hurts folks that have the abilities, the gifts to
Yep.
see the other side.
Yep.
How do we combat that?
You have to
How do
call
we
it
police
out.
ourselves?
Yeah,
Okay.
you have to call it out. And you can't be, there can't be a good old boy network in the spiritual realm, the religious realm, and the paranormal realm. There just can't be. You have to call it out. And when it's wrong, you have to say that it's wrong. When people are doing things that are, they're charlatans, you have to expose them for that and explain why. What people don't understand, a lot of the charlatans and the fakes and the phonies, not only are they good cold readers and they're good con men, confidence men, because they know exactly how to size you up. They know how to gain your confidence. They know the right thing to say at the right time. But what people don't understand is these people also were really pretty adept at simple sleight of hand stage magic, not real magic, but stage magic. So you can go in and there's a bowl of eggs sitting there. This is one of the dodges that they've used forever and ever and ever. And they say, pick any egg out of this bowl. Well, what are we going to do? Well, I'm going to pick this egg. You're going to pick the egg. Any egg you want in that bowl. We're going to crack it open. If it's clean, your aura's clean. Your environment's clean. There's no curses. There's no evil spirits around you. But if there's anything unusual in the egg, then we know we got problems. Well, you can pick any egg in there you want to. They're all clean. And then when the phony medium gets a hold of it through sleight of hand, they crack it, and they drop the gobbledygook in with it. And oh my God, look at this. And there's these horrible black things and this mold and this everything else in this egg. And it's, well, you picked it. You had free choice. This is your life. Look at what's around you here. Look, you've got these curses around you, these evil spirits. Now we got to figure out how to get rid of these. So they're conning you through simple magic. They're conning you through suggestion. They're conning you through intimidation. And it goes on from there. And you would think, well, I'm not stupid enough to fall for that. Listen, the smartest people I know have fallen for this. I've had to rescue people over the years that have been taken by these people for $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 and more. And some of these people have owned their own business, had 3 master's degrees. Like
well, they're preying on emotion. These people are in a state of anxiety, a state of pain, and folks take advantage of them. And
we're all vulnerable at some point or another
in
our lives. And if you walk into someone and they say, you look a little tired and you look a little anxious. Well, yeah, I kind of feel that way. Well, who doesn't in this world in this day and time, for God's sake? And have you had some problems around the home lately? It was like you got up, there was a flat tire, the hot water heater went out. Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, boom, there you go. Well, that's all of us. That's all of us every day, all the time. Exactly. There's nothing unusual in any of that, but we don't think about it that way. And then when somebody points it out to us and tries to connect it to you've got a curse or you've got bad energies around you or whatever, it can make sense.
And all true. But still, how do we protect people from that? How do we education? Tell me.
One of the things I'm doing in my 4th book I'm writing is I'm writing an entire chapter on that right now as we speak. In that portion of the book, I'm writing an entire chapter on spotting phony psychics, avoiding them, understanding how they do what they do, how to avoid them, how to tell the real from the false, and so on and so forth. So that's the big thing of it, is education and calling the phonies out. And the amazing thing to me over the years, I've done this many, many times. And the amazing thing to me is I've had people that would defend and support the phonies over my expos of them, and they would still defend them, even though I could point out in detail how these people were scamming them and that they were phonies and so on and so forth. No, I'm going to stick with them. And this one person, I remember I had a client a number of years ago that one of these phony psychics got a hold of and convinced this person that I was this ancient demon that had haunted this person through several past lives and had found them in this life and was tormenting them now, and they needed to stay away from me because I was going to mislead them. And I was like, oh my God. So I was explaining to this guy, no. And he wouldn't believe it. He swallowed the thing hook, line, and sinker.
And once again, people in emotional states will believe it.
And then finally, down the road, he came to me and he said, you were right, and you were everything that you said you were, and everything you said was right, and this person was wrong, and so he finally admitted it. But it's a struggle, it's a battle. It's like, well, from law enforcement, there are people out there that want to be taken.
I've locked my share of con artists up, so I get it, and I guess that's one reason why I take real umbrance towards folks that try to take advantage of others in those kinds of states. Well, John, we're just about out of time. Any last parting words before we say goodnight?
What I want people to understand is the paranormal realm is real. Just because something can be faked doesn't mean that the real doesn't exist. And we can learn to connect with the paranormal realm in safe ways to make our lives better, to receive the guidance that we need, to receive healing that we need, and so on and so forth. So that's the message I would leave everybody.
Well, I appreciate that. And I really want to thank you for joining us tonight. And I want to thank everybody out there watching it. And remember, you can get a hold of us on our next show. You can get a hold of me at paranormalstakeout.org. Write us a little note giving us your thoughts and your comments. But most importantly, I want to tell you how much I appreciate everybody being here tonight and joining us. And until we meet again, please take care of yourselves, love your family, and we'll see you on the other side. Have a good night, folks.